Welcome back to my YouTube channel, your host Celine, the soul of an African woman. And today we are going to be discussing the chains we break. It's the series that we had started, and I had uploaded the previous episode on what it means to be an unchained woman. So today we are going to start by discussing the chains we break, whereby we will be discussing different types of chains. Today we are starting off with the chain of silence. Remember, this is one of the chains that have been used over the centuries to be able to imprison women. So today we are going to discuss it widely, what it means, what are some of the different types of chains of silence, and how has our founding mothers been able to pass it down. The chain of silence is suppression of voice, whereby you're not able to express yourself, you're not able to let people know what's actually going on. And some of these silent chains or chains of silence are cultural silence, we have domestic silence, and also we have political silence. So we're going to look at them holistically, step by step, and be able to understand what it means. What is cultural silence? Cultural silence is one of the chains of silence that we're going to debunk today. And cultural silence are just cultural ways that were being used to silence women. Some were being put in form of phrases. For example, a good wife doesn't speak. It was being used as a form of discipline. But what you don't know is that it created fear of rejection, fear of being unwomanly, or fear of being unruly. Yeah, able to survive in an environment whereby speaking out is like a criminal offense, or it's something that will be going against the cultural traditions. It created a performative humility, because they were focusing on respect and discipline. So to be able to survive in such environment, you have to perform to be able to considered not unruly, or to be considered, socially accepted, to be able to get marriage proposals, and being able to survive generally in such an environment, you needed to perform a certain level of discipline or respect. Ancient African society, humility was being treated as being invincible, not being able to be perceived or seen, because being seen or being heard is a form of disrespect to the culture. All right. Now, what this does is it erases the history that would have been passed down through women. It's like women never existed. If I'm only allowed to speak in whispers, that means I'm not allowed to have an opinion on the things that are happening within my surrounding, or my take on the revolutions. Yeah. We as the modern African women, we have to reclaim the voice without losing the wisdom that it came with, or it holds. Yeah. Now, our founding mothers, even if they were chained by means of silence, they were still able to pass some form of information through riddles, through composing songs, and also through storytelling. In the face of oppression, colonialism happened. Now, the British doubled down the silence by dismantling the women's economic capabilities, whereby they were not able to own land, they were not able to become spiritual, warriors and all that. And now they introduced something called the mission school, whereby they were rewarding good girls with being literate, going to school, being able to get a job. However, this was just to reward them to a level of service. They were only able to serve, but not to lead. In the face of harsh resistance, there came brave women who stood up for their society, regardless of oppression and anything that comes with colonization. One of them was Field Marshal Muthoni Kirima, who was one of the leaders in the Mau Mau movement. She led both men and women in the war, and her dreadlocks were a sign of defiance of the British rule. Also, we do have Mekatilili Wamenza, a very talented woman who was using prophecies and dances to be able to organize the Giriama men to be able to fight the British. We also have Wangari Maathai, one of the Kenyans' greatest household names. She won the Nobel Peace Prize. So what does that tell you? Even in the face of the resistance, we can still stand up and speak for our rights and still be heard. Next, we are going to talk about the domestic silence. This is the quiet scream in the homes that no one is able to hear them, only the walls. Yeah. In Kenya, they say vumilia. What does that mean? You persevere. You keep it a secret, a family secret. Now, women's pain was being treated as family secret, not something that should be addressed. Because when women speak, men have take accountability. But no, that's not what patriarchy wanted. They say that silence guards homes, but that only indicates the fragility of patriarchy. Because why would you protect the same name that oppresses you and put you through pain? Silence was being used as a mean of damage control, not consent. Something that we need to understand and take seriously is that every generation that swallows injustice still passes a little bit of poison to the next generation. Yeah. Now let's talk about the political silence. Silence in politics was manufactured by colonization and followed by patriarchy, then poverty. Yeah. When colonization happened, they ensured that they dismantled the system where women had space to lead and be in authority. For example, the Igbos community, where there was a dual sex governance. Yeah. Under political silence came independence, yeah? Now, after independence, most African countries, they carried the blueprint where most form of governance was technically patriarchal. Women in this case were only being used as a symbol of virtue, but then after victory, all these women were being muted back to silence oppression. For example, Winnie Mandela was the face of defiance, but later she was demonized, where on the other hand, the male counterparts were being praised. So technically, women were being muted after the society, or let me put it, patriarchy, has gained whatever they wanted to use these women for. Told politics is dirty was also a means of keeping women out of politics, because why would you put your life in the line? Yeah, so these were just some of the ways that they were not only external, but they were being absorbed in and guarding the morality of the at the expense of battling at the field. Understanding what it means to have a voice not only uplift African women, but it also reminds us of the strength that African women holds. Yeah. So there is a higher percentage now of educated women, and that should give you hope that we as women, we have been able to unchain ourselves from the oppressions that came with patriarchy, the colonization, and the culture that was holding us hostage. Now it's time for us to express ourselves, understand that we are as human beings also deserve to be treated decently. We also deserve equality in power positions. We also deserve to have a voice in our society, in our culture, and a woman cannot only be determined by her silence virtues or her humility. There is more to life than just what you can express. That performative humility is not something that should be used as a definitive absolute definitive for a woman, or something that makes a woman be perfect. We are human beings. We have functioning brain. We have the powers as well as the men. Yeah. So reclaiming our voice enable us to also tells our side of the story when it comes to governance and history that is passed along to the future generations.